You're listening to Heaving Bosoms, the podcast where best friends recap romance novels while going on tangents and sobbing when weirdos find their people.
Stack our shelves with the clinches out. Shout it from the rooftop, can you hear the sound? Yeah. Live your best life, love it out loud. Love it out loud.
Hey HBs, it's today. It's officially St. Vincent Day. Don't miss our bonus content this Friday because I'm doing quickies on Devon and Reese's books in this Ravenel series, Cold-Hearted Rake and Marrying Winterborn. God, I loved these books. Y'all know how much we love and appreciate our patrons, and I've got a new set of amazing supporters to shout out. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Moon Gaming 25, Meg, Rachel H, Nicole M, Prabarna G, Catherine, and Ari. Okay, when we left you yesterday, Pandora and a whole passel of other Ravenels arrived at St. Vincent's country house, and Gabriel was about to start scheming some alone time. That's where we're jumping in. All right, what happens after this? Oh, the Duchess wants to take her on a guided tour, and Gabriel's like, I was going to take her to go somewhere by ourselves. And she's like, I would much rather be with the Duchess. And also, we have to have a chaperone.
And then beautiful, precious Phoebe is the cutest thing in the entire world because Sebastian is like, well, we should go down to the cove. Phoebe already offered to chaperone. And Phoebe's like, oh, did I?
Did I?
And he's like, yeah, when we spoke this morning. And she's like, oh, when did we speak this morning? He says, yeah, you said that you needed to get outside and get some fresh air and sunlight. And she was like, wasn't I chatty this morning?
Well, and I actually really loved this part because this is him like cheekily caring for her.
Oh,
She's
absolutely.
just lost her husband. She's in the depths of grief right now. She's trying to raise her two boys. And he there are moments when they comment and she's like, thinner and wan and pale and her freckles have disappeared because she hasn't been out in the sun. And this is him being like, look, two birds, one stone. You need to get some vitamin D and touch some grass.
And I need to get some D and touch some Phoebe. Nope.
Sure.
That's the sister.
Nope,
Pandora.
absolutely not. No,
touch
yeah.
some
And
Pandora.
And I need a chaperone who does not care at all about chaperoning is what I need.
Yeah.
So they go on this walk in the Holloway, which I learned during this book is like a sunken, dugout road, something like that. And so it's got like high walls on each side. It's ditch times that you walk on, I think, is my understanding. And
have you never been on a beach that has this kind of thing?
I can't remember.
Okay, it's like common on like beaches with like sand, like dunes and things like that.
I have not been on one of these, to my knowledge. Anyway, so as they're going on there, he's trying to draw Phoebe out. God damn it! Why did you do that to me?
I'm so
God
sorry.
damn it!
I accidentally typed Phoebe one time in my notes, and then I suffered for the rest of the book.
I'm so mad at you.
It's because
you popped the top.
I love Evie in West Ravenel so much. The way that you just said Evie instead of Pandora accidentally, that's me and Phoebe.
Yeah.
That's Eve. Yeah. That's oh God, Phoebe, Evie. Bye. Fuck. I'm ruined.
You're making
for
it
the
worse.
Rest of this episode. if Melody bleeps out half of the words out of my mouth the rest of this episode is because I was fucking up Pandora's name and implying sibling incest.
If you hear if you hear a really weird tone of one of Pandora's name, it's because I've taken it from another sentence and popped it in here,
Well, it's
not
because
caring about the way the audio matches up.
I was either doing sibling incest or Melody was doing parent incest. It's fine.
Ugh, ugh.
Happy St. Vincent's Day.
Yeah, right? So he's trying to draw her out and she's not having it. She's trying to stay as remote as possible.
Well, because she knows now. Her lady's maid
That's right.
told her that the servants are all talking about how it's probable that, okay, well, it's, whatever happens, because if she doesn't marry him, he'll just make her marry somebody else so that he gets out of it. And she ends up bringing that up. She brings up those rumors and he's like, I have no intention of giving you to another man. Where did you hear that? And she's just like, oh, blah, 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 blah. And then he's like, no, give me these 7 days, okay? You're here for a week. We're trying to pack 6 months of courtship into 6 days. Can we please have a ceasefire? That's the word.
There we go.
Let's have a ceasefire where, like, we're at peace. Everything's, like, please.
He says, we need a ceasefire, including total honesty.
Yes.
Nothing can be left out. And she says, well, I don't want to be in a situation where it's one-sided. And so he promises to answer any of her questions as well and be totally transparent.
Mm-hmm.
And I do love it, though, because when he says, like, we're trying to pack 6 months of courtship into this, she's like, I don't want to be courted. She's so mad about it. Anyway.
They're in the hallway, listener. They're in the hallway and they are looking at each other and they're like chest to chest, looking deep into each other's eyes. And it's lovely. And they're talking and she agrees to this ceasefire. And then she notices a triangle at the base of his neck, listener.
Oh.
And she is a young woman with impulse control because she is looking at it thinking, wow, what a perfect little spot for my lips to go.
Yes.
And then in her head, she thinks,
she's like, don't do it.
Oh, no.
Don't do it.
Oh, no, I'm doing it. And then she kisses him there. And
Between his collarbones.
Gabriel's breath
He
got
gasps.
hard and he pulls back and she's blushing and she says, I'm so sorry. And he says, no, I don't mind. I was just surprised. I can't control my impulses, she said hastily. I'm not responsible for what just happened. I have a nervous condition. A nervous
Baby, you have
condition?
ADHD.
Was that an official diagnosis? No, but according to a book I once read, Phenomena Produced by Diseases of the Nervous System, it's very likely that I have hyperesthesia or periodic mania or both. Why are you smiling?
Laughing.
It's not nice to laugh at other people's diseases.
It's so funny.
And then he's like, have you ever been kissed before, Phoebe?
Oh.
No!
Love. He's already calling her love.
Oh my God. He calls her little love. He calls her my sweet girl. He calls her precious one. Like, oh my God. And listener, oh my God. Melody, I haven't even told you this yet. I talked about it when I recorded.
Don't hold out.
I have started tracking swoons on my books with the way that I track my books now. So like I can put in like things that like are continuously swoony too, right? Like things that make my heart go, I can go just be like, oh, boop, boop. And then they're in there. Forehead kisses. There's so many forehead kisses in this book. Forehead kisses, listener. I love a forehead kiss. And he like, in this scene, he like, it's not really a kiss. It like, he just
more of like a brush
his
of lips.
mouth to like get rid of the furrows of her brow. Oh, beautiful. And then, listener, Phoebe gets her first kiss because he's like, well, I mean, if you don't want to kiss, we could do, I mean, other cultures. It's not a human phenomenon to kiss.
We could boop noses.
Some people boop noses.
We could blow on each other's faces.
And then she's like, you're making fun of me. And he's like, no, I'm flirting. Have you never been flirted with before? And she's like, well, no.
And he's like, don't think I have.
So do we boop noses now? And then she's like, no. And then she blows in his face. And he says to her, you win at flirting. And then they kiss. Flirting.
And then she turns into a ravenous animal because sensory situations are happening to her that she didn't know existed. So she's got to glom onto them as hard as possible. And
Wait.
she climbs him like a tree.
Well, first she's just docile and letting him take control because he knows what he's doing. And then she takes over and he has to pull away because he's like, we need to stop here because otherwise I'm debauching this woman in a hallway where our family could find. And he tells her that she kisses like a pirate. And he needs it as a
you
compliment.
Kiss like a pirate.
And he's grinning. Oh, he's so happy about it. Oh,
it's so good.
And then there's a harumph, and Phoebe is here to interrupt. And he says, Phoebe, the fact that I asked you to be a chaperone should have made it obvious that I didn't want a chaperone at all.
Yeah.
I have no desire to be one, Phoebe retorted. However, the children are asking why you're taking so long, and I can't very well explain to them that you're a libidinous goat. No, Gabriel replied, because then you would sound like a parsimonious prig. And then they smile at each other.
Yeah.
And Pandora's like, what just happened?
I don't understand. Your facial expressions don't match what you're saying out loud.
Yeah, so now they're at the beach and they're exploring, and it is so sweet. Like, they learn so much about each other on this beach. Like, they wander the water. She's picking up shells, and he's telling her about all of these shells, and like, because he has so much sexy knowledge about random topics. It's so cute. And then she is she tells him a thing about herself, which is that she is very easily distracted. Like, she gets distracted by this and that, and she ends up going around in circles until she gets back where she started. And it's very important, listener, in about 2 minutes. So they are now...
Wait, it's important right then, because he says, in the conversation, he says, why don't you just make the circles bigger?
Oh, that is important.
Which is very important.
That's not the one that I was thinking about.
But it also doubles down later. Like, it gets better later. But she is thinking like every other person would like look at her like she was Banana Town and then, walk away or change the subject or whatever. And instead, he like plays with her, but also he's essentially like not problem solving, but he's like, you can use what you already do, but to still get to where you want.
He's thinking outside the box.
Yes.
He thinks outside the box for her this entire book. He is yes-anding her the entire time instead of shutting her down. And he is so... You said it perfectly, that he is a man raised by St. Vincent.
That's right.
With with the grounding
of Evie. He's basically my candle that smells like the best thing ever. My St. Vincent's Day candle. It's dark amber and rosewood, y'all, because it's combining St. Vincent and Evie, and it's the best candle I've ever smelled.
Is that what they smell like in the book?
Yeah.
Oh.
No. I don't know. I chose the scents because they were the closest things that I thought represented both of them. Like dark amber, she calls him a fallen angel.
Okay.
And the color of his hair and all of that.
I'm not going to say that I did a lot of reading challenges where one of the requirements was what a character smells like. And so I'm not going to say that I track that, but I do.
Sure.
I completely track that.
There's a tag.
Close to 100 of them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I believe you.
So they end up talking about, like, he's like, why are you so opposed to marriage? Because at this point, she's still not up for it. And he's like, I'm a wife this lady up if it's the last thing I do. And she explains to him her objections, and it's that she becomes property. She's dead in the eye of the law.
She doesn't exist civilly anymore. The husband and wife are considered one person, and that person is the husband. So, like, none of her earnings would technically be hers. Her business would not be hers. She would have to have his approval on everything she wants to do with her board game company.
She can't sign contracts.
Yeah. And she takes it even further because she's like, She's like, what happened? What would happen? Because he says, well, that's fine if you're in a relationship where like you're treated as a partner, which is what I would do. And then she's like, well, what if somebody's not? Who would stop the husband from who would stop your dad from beating your mom? He's like, well, I would. And she's like, but that's
the issue.
Legally, nobody has to do that. Like, why can't she be the one that decides how she should be treated? And, points for Pandora here. It makes total sense.
Well, yeah, and he's like, well, I understand that, and you're right. The legal system is not kind to women as far as marriage is concerned, but also, there's other reasons to get married that outweigh what you're talking about. And she's like, but there's not. You have to just trust that whoever you end up with is not going to do that. And he's like,
right.
But that's there's other reasons though. And she's like, but why would I do any of that? And he says, because marriage is more than a legal arrangement. It's about companionship, security, desire, love. Are none of those things important to you? They are, she said, which is why I could never feel them for a man if I were his property.
Yes.
And how poignant.
I mean, yes, absolutely. And suddenly he's like, oh, fuck. It's not just getting married. It's the entire institution.
He'd assumed she was a nonconformist. She was a bloody insurrectionist.
Yeah. And then as they're doing this sandcastle, and she ends up fixing one of the squabbles between the kids by telling them a story about how this hermit crab they're building the sandcastle for has gone all over the world. Shellin, yeah. And gone all over the world and all of its adventures and everything. And he's just standing there in awe, being like, her mind is so wonderful. Later on, he'll tell her that having an imagination and, liking whimsy or whatever doesn't mean you're not an adult. You're just a more interesting adult. And she's like, oh my God.
I almost cried.
Me too. She's like, somebody is describing my quirks as benefits and not detriments. This is the first time that's ever happened outside of my sister and my the rest of the good part of my family.
Yeah. And then in his head, he's thinking about how he was not prepared for this woman. And he has to be the person that she ends up with because he is so into her. And he's trying to figure out how he can possibly make marriage not even appealing to her, but acceptable at the palatable bare minimum. And he does it because he doesn't want to bully her into it. And he also knows that he can't bully her into it. And that it has to be her choice. Mm-hmm. And oh my God, he watches her walking away with his brother to take Shelly back to his family. And she keeps getting distracted by shells until his brother tugs her along. And he thinks to himself, good God, she really did walk in circles. A pang of tenderness centered in Gabriel's chest like an ache. He wanted all her circles to lead back to him. Oh my God. And listener, if you've never read a single Lisa Kleypas novel, everything that I am quoting at you, which is legally not enough of the book to be sued, to be clear, yet. But it is a lot. This is all of her writing. Her writing is so... I don't even have an adjective.
I mean, this is why I made a sticker that says Lisa Kleypas is a fully magical being. That's just it. Oh.
So then we have a whole thing. We zip forward 2 or 3 days, and he has been a perfect gentleman. There's been no smooches. There's been no touches. There's been no attempted debauchery. And she's been obsessing about that comment about her kissing like a pirate.
She's like, I think I did it wrong.
Yeah.
Oh no. And so now, is it archery times? Can it be archery times, please? Please, 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 please.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So now it's archery times. and all of the people are out there doing archeries. But then it's over, okay? And everybody wants to go back into the house because they have to like dress for dinner. There's a couple of families coming over, so they have to be a little bit fancier, which means that the cleanup is left predominantly to solely on Pandora and Gabriel. And so they're like getting people's arrows out of stuff. And what, Sabrina?
Continue.
You obviously...
It's just, if you skip this, I'm stopping you immediately. So just keep going.
Say it.
Okay. So we have a cute scene with like her, like them talking about her laughter and how it makes them feel. But then we have possibly one of my top 5 scenes in this entire book.
Yes.
Because she says to him, tell me the worst thing about yourself. Because she's trying to find like something about him that makes him less perfect.
She's desperately trying to not like him.
Intimidating. And also that. And he says, I will, but I'd rather discuss it later in private. A sick weight of dread settled at the bottom of her stomach. Would her worst suspicion about him turn out to be true? Does it have something to do with women? Pandora brought herself to ask, her pulse beating, a rapid tattoo of alarm in her throat and wrists. He gave her an oblique glance. Yes. Oh, God. No. Too upset to guard her tongue, she burst out. I knew it! You have the pox! Gabriel shot her a startled look. The quiver of arrows dropped to the ground with a clatter. What? And then she's like, Australian pox, Bavarian pox,
she does all the poxes.
Pox, English pox, French pox, Russian pox, African pox.
Which one is it? And so he says, I've never had the pox. And she's like, which one? And he says, all of them. And she goes, you've had all of them?
He's like, no, I haven't had any of them.
I've never had the pox. Also, it is only one pox. We just have named it about people we don't like. And it's only...
And also,
God, this is this.
Deeply inappropriate conversation. Can we talk about like something more appealing? I can't have the pox. I've used contraceptives.
I've always used French letters. And she's like, she starts breaking down the words like to their root word almost. And so she's like, what do sheep balloons have to do with getting the pox? And he says, if you really want an explanation that like includes the anatomical breakdown, I will give it to you. But like, I don't know if you're ready for that. No. Thank you. But then at one point, she's being more ridiculous and he thinks it's so cute. And so he just launches himself at her mouth and they start kissing. But when Pandora can like understand there's an outside world still, she realizes they're sitting on the ground and she's sitting in his lap. She has no idea how they got there. And then she's like, okay, I've been wondering about this because you...
She pulls away from his kiss. And she's like, no, please don't. And he's like, what's wrong? And she's like, you said that I kiss like a pirate. And he's like, that was a compliment. And she was like, well, it doesn't change the fact that I've been thinking about it constantly for the last 3 days, trying to figure out what the hell you meant. And he says, forgive my poor choice of words. What I meant to convey was that I found your enthusiasm charming. Did you? Because I've worried for the past 3 days that I did it wrong. No, never, darling. Isn't it obvious everything about you gives me pleasure? Even when I plunder and pillage like a Viking pirate.
Especially then.
But yes. Especially my sweet, there are altogether too many respectable ladies in the world. The supply has far exceeded the demand, but there's an appalling shortage of attractive pirates, and you do seem to have a gift for plundering and ravishing. Ooh. I think you found your true calling. You're mocking me, Pandora said in resignation, and jumped a little as she felt his teeth gently nip her earlobe. Smiling, Gabriel took her head between his hands and looked into her eyes. Your kiss thrilled me beyond imagining, he whispered.
My God.
Every night for the rest of my life, I'll dream of the afternoon in the Holloway when I was waylaid by a dark-haired beauty who devastated me with the heat of 1,000 troubled stars and left my soul in cinders, even when I'm an old man and my brain has fallen to rack and ruin. I'll remember the sweet fire of your lips under mine, and I'll say to myself,
oh my
now
God.
that was a kiss.
Oh my God.
Gabriel!
How dare everyone? Lisa Kleypas, I'm sorry. How dare you? I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to cope. It's fine. And then she's like, well, you silver-tongued devil or something like that. And she thinks to herself like people describe his dad, the former St. Vincent, Sebastian, that one, as like, you know, describing things with a lot of flair and like, you know, dramatic phrasing and everything. And she says, Gabriel obviously got that from him.
So now we're at the dinner party, and she is seated with they're seated separately, and she ends up trying small talk with a gentleman. And they end up talking about clouds. And she's like, well, maybe it's not so bad talking about the weather.
Yeah.
She's using her mashed potatoes to tell him the different types of clouds.
Yeah.
And they're talking about it. And he is clearly not interested in this conversation. And
no,
that she
he shuts her
made
down
some form
hard.
of faux pas. But then Phoebe speaks up, and she starts telling her about how her late husband, I can't think of his name, Henry. Like, how they used to look at clouds and how clever he was and how he was able to pull out like pictures,
like images.
And it was like magic because she couldn't see anything until he pointed it out. And then she, oh God.
And then Pandora says he sounds like a really wonderful man. And kind of wistfully, Phoebe says, he was. Maybe someday I'll tell you about him. I'm crying right now. And read the thing about what.
And finally, Pandora understood where a little small talk about the weather might lead.
When you find your people. Like when you find your people, you know?
Yeah. Oh, Mel!
That hit me very hard.
You are so precious to me. I love you.
So me sobbing.
I was not prepared either because I was like looking at my notes. I was looking at my yarn, and then all of a sudden you started talking, and I looked up, and I was like, "Is she?" And then you were like, "You say the thing, I'm crying," and I was like,
I wasn't prepared either. That hit me out of nowhere. I thought I was going to be fine.
I love you.
I'm talking about that.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
So then they end up going to the parlor afterwards. There's no separation between the genders at this household during after dinner party times. And he proposes. Well, so first he shows her a magic trick with a carrot where he throws cards and like slices it in half, and it is
incredible
delight for everybody. And then he talks her into a game of whist. And by the way, there's been lots of comments this evening about like card sharps and like people who don't,
because he grew up at Jenner's. And so he's been like telling her about that a little bit and ribbing his dad. He'll raise his voice just enough so that his dad at the whist table over there can hear him. It's just, they're so cute.
Completely unfair that my father ruined me before I ever had a chance to ruin myself, you know?
Yeah.
Like he put all the
my misspent youth was handed to me on a silver platter, he says.
Yeah.
So when they're sitting down to whist, he says, like, I do need to tell you something. It's not important. It just feels like information that would be wrong to keep from you, basically. And it's that her older brother, the abusive one who died, tried to be a member of Jenner's. And when Gabriel turned him down because his credit was bad, he like flies off the handle. And he doesn't even have to say really anything. She's just like, oh, he behaved badly about it, didn't he? And then he says, yeah, but that's no reflection on you, because she apologizes for him. And he says, that has no bearing on you.
So, and then she opens up about her family in general, and she makes a comment, a metaphor that...
What a beautiful metaphor.
Boy, it felt like a truck to the solar plexus.
Yeah.
Because she talks about how they were like constellations, and it seems like it's a bunch of stars that should all fit together because they make a picture in the sky. But then in reality, those stars are they're light years apart. They are so far apart. They're not even in the same system. And fuck, that was my Phoebe and Henry small talk moment.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus.
No, truly. And she compares it to his family. She's like, my family wasn't like yours at all. And she even talks about like how she never knew what was going on, and people were nice by turns, but then would disappear as well. So anyway, after that, he asks her if she wants to make the third game include a forfeit. He should we bet on the third game, he says. And she agrees.
They both won one.
Yes. And so she agrees, and then she says, if I win, then you have to sing as the top of your lungs in the middle of the entry hall, and you have to sing God Save the Queen. And then he says, if I win, you will meet me back here tonight for a rendezvous at midnight. And she is like, I should be automatically saying no. Why aren't I saying no? Oh no, I'm still not saying no. But also, like, she's having all these feelings of like, what, this would truly be the most outrageous thing I've ever done, the most scandalous thing I've ever done.
She says to him, are you going to try to seduce me? And he says, I might try to tempt you, but the choice would be yours. Are you worried that you might not want me to stop? Pandora snorted. After what my sister Helen told me about the conjugal embrace, I can't fathom why any woman would willingly consent to it. But I suppose if any man could make it slightly less revolting than it sounds, it would be you. Thank you, Gabriel said, sounding bemused. I think. And then they go back and forth, and he's like, I mean, you can forfeit here now if you want. Neither of us get a win. And she says, I'll finish the game, and before the night ends, the entrance hall will be echoing with your stirring rendition of the national anthem. All 6 verses. His eyes gleamed with satisfaction. I only know the first verse, so you'll have to settle for hearing that one 6 times.
6 times. Oh, that's so good.
Oh, God, I love them. Unsurprisingly, he wins.
He goes from like being a really super mediocre, like, you know, cautious player to just like wham, bam, 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 and then he wins. And she's like, oh, fuck stick. And she's obviously upset about it. And he's like, hey, you can back out. And she's like, I know that was probably meant as like a nice thing, but I am highly offended. And she goes, what? Why? Do you think that a man's honor is more important and more serious than like a woman's honor? And he's like, whoa, no. I'm not saying that at all. She's like, I take games very seriously. And so, yes, I will be here at midnight, but I am going to go sit with my sister now. I'm feeling very emotionally dysregulated at the moment. I need to find my I need to go back to home base, is what she says.
That's exactly what it is. She's like, I
don't know how to do this right now. Okay, but now her vertigo comes back into play because she has to get there in the dark. She usually has Cassandra escort her places, but she's like, I can't have Cassandra escort me to a booty call. Like, that's not a good thing to do. And as she goes, she trips on her slipper, which puts out her candle. Everything goes dark, and she topsy-turvies onto the ground and against what she thinks. She's not sure if it's the wall or if it's the floor. Like, it's, oh man, the couple of times that I've experienced vertigo have been it's so wild and surreal and upsetting. Have you ever had vertigo?
So I've experienced vertigo, and I never understood it because my grandmother had it really bad.
Yeah.
And so she described it to me. And then I was like, I just didn't really understand it until I did. And I was
Yes.
like, oh, this is disorienting. This is
To the extreme.
one of the worst feelings I've ever experienced in my life.
The lack of control you feel.
What it reminds me of is the way that I feel with heights,
Okay.
but
yeah.
there's no heights involved.
Yep.
Is what it feels like to me.
So she's now sitting, she's leaning on a wall in the complete darkness, like breathing really fast. She's like, I don't know where I go from here. I can't navigate to this place. I can't go back to my room. And then she sees like the shadow of a figure moving toward her. And he kneels by her and he says, Pandora, sweet girl, what is it? Are you afraid of the storm? Are you afraid
Melody,
of the dark?
I am such a slut for a pet name. And when he called her, I remember very specifically him calling her my sweet girl in this scene.
So this book is really interesting to me in that I have a couple of like icks that I'm on the record for. One of them is forehead kisses. Another one is like, infantilizing specifically the heroine.
You can't say forehead kisses anymore, Mel.
Shush. There was one time that Michael did it and I hated myself because I loved it so much. It's fine. No. And it was, listener, I don't know why he has this weird timing. There have been multiple times where I've been like, I hate this thing so much. And then like the
on
week
pod,
after. And he'll do it the week after, but like before the episodes even come out. So I can't even be like, are you listening to episodes? It's not. I don't know. It's just like a wrinkle in the fucking universe. Anyway. So, because I record in a sound booth, nobody can hear me recording outside either. If you think like he might be in the next room, no, he has no way to know what I'm talking about in here. So anyway, sorry. And like infantilizing the heroine and like but this book, every time he kissed her forehead, every time he like brushed his mouth over her forehead, and then now being like, sweet girl, are you afraid of the dark? Are you afraid of X, Y, and Z? Like, what's going on with you? Honestly, if you would read that whole passage to them, that would be great for me. If that's... Is that a problem for you? I just made her choke on her drink.
You're such an asshole. I muted myself because I needed to like crack a can and like make a bunch of noise, and then like mid first sip, Melody rolls in. Hey, so could you read this entire like 3 chapter long? No, it's not 3 chapters.
Not 3 chapters. Just this one part, because the way...
Yeah, it's
the
fine because I
he...
can just search my sweet girl word for word.
I don't know if it's actually sweet girl this time. It might be.
Oh, I know it
be.
is.
It is?
I know for
Am I
a
a
fact
hot
it is.
genius?
No.
Have I listened to this book 3 times?
So this is the point of the book where I realized I have to stop highlighting everything I want to highlight. And so like, because I remember I literally highlighted this and went to copy, because for context, listener, I don't read my highlights out of the book. I copy them into my notes, and I had to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I had to stop.
It was becoming a 103-page document.
That's not even the problem, because it's an endless page system that I have. But
that's true.
Legally, legitimately legally, it would have been an issue.
Yeah.
So anyway, Pandora, a pair of hard arms closed around her. What happened? My God, you're shaking. Are you afraid of the dark? The storm? He kissed her damp forehead and pressed soothing murmurs into her hair. Easy, softly now. You're safe in my arms. Nothing's going to harm you, my sweet girl.
It.
He had discarded his black formal coat. Why am I talking like that? He had discarded his black formal coat, and the turned-down collar of his shirt had been unfastened. She could smell the spice of shaving soap on his skin. The fragrance was warm and masculine and comforting, making her shiver in relief. I dropped my candle, she wheezed. Don't worry about that. One of his hands curved around the back of her neck, fondling gently. Everything's all right now. And then he just holds her.
Mhm.
As somebody afraid of the dark, if somebody,
If you were stuck in a dark hallway,
for somebody who is very vocal and open about the fact that I have less than, not only am I definitely some flavor of on the aromantic spectrum, whatever the cause of that is and somebody who is like, I don't want to be married, or like it would take a real specific kind of situation, blah blah. For somebody who says that, there's an awful lot of things that I'm like, man, if somebody did blank, I would fucking get down on one knee myself. Like, boy, howdy. Like, I feel like I say it constantly in episodes. I'm gonna end up one day, and my God, if whoever it is that I'm referencing right now ever listens to this episode,
if they got the Sabrina playbook,
I'm watching
from
you. I don't take me up on any of these things. You will be disappointed, okay? All of this is facetious and over the top, and I'm just letting you know that now. But also, like, it is something that will make me swoon. So,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say one of them is gonna get me down on one knee, but like, if you listen to all of my episodes and you just like compile all of that information, like, I'm not gonna say that I've given somebody a roadmap. Like, man, is this what happens when one of your co-hosts on a romance novel podcast is not already in a committed relationship? Is we just share all of our stuff. Melody's like, yeah, no, I've already got the best husband in the world, and I'm like, I mean,
that's fine.
Here's all of the things that would make me swoon.
Yeah. And like, if you want to console her about the dark, you probably should also be wearing a black jumpsuit, fuchsia eyeshadow, and a frown or something. Anyway, a sleeveless jumpsuit.
And then pulling a little Gabriel with like a My Sweet Girl.
Yes.
Like, hey, to be clear, I am genderqueer. I go by she, they, but like, you can sweet girl me anytime, anywhere.
That's a panty dropper, y'all. Okay.
That is a instantaneous, spontaneous inflammation of all of my clothing. What's the word that I'm looking for? Combustion. Spontaneous combustion. Instantaneous. What did I say? Instantaneous.
I don't know.
The fuck?
I don't know. I was about to say self-immolation, so that's not right.
I might self-immolate over a. Wait, what is? Does that mean I set myself on fire?
Yes, that's bad. That's bad.
I mean, if they requested it in the dark in a fuchsia jumpsuit with eyeliner and a frown, and they said, "My sweet girl, will you please set yourself on fire?" I hope you're not too afraid of the dark.
Think about it.
I would. Do you have a lighter?
So he then carries her into the drawing room they were supposed to rendezvous in, and he has her on his lap, and he is comforting her, and he's like, can you tell me what just happened? And she ends up telling him that like she has an ear injury. And oh no, he says, does it have something to do with the fact that you don't hear very well out of one ear? And she's like, holy shit, how did he notice that in like 2 days when people I lived with for years didn't notice that at all? And it's because he's paying attention to you, Pandora. He's interested in you, you know.
Nothing's sexier than somebody who not only pays attention, but actually pays attention. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's not just that they're like aware of what's going on. They're like, they're picking up everything. The context cues. And learning more than you're saying with your mouth. Oh, to be seen.
Yeah. She ends up telling him everything. He's the first person she's ever told about the injury and the way that it happened when she was a kid. And he's so mad, obviously. And he's like, if your dad was still alive, I would kill him myself. And she says, no, don't think like that. Actually, I hated him for a long time, but now I just feel bad for him. And he says, why? And she says, because hurting me was the only way to hide his own pain. Wow.
Fucking big
Lisa
Kleypas.
Come on. You're hitting me
hey.
with real life stuff just out of nowhere.
It's one of, do you ever read a phrase
Mm-hmm.
or a statement in a book and it's something that doesn't like directly correlate
Yeah.
to something, but like when you're in a specific place,
Yes.
fuck.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of those moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
So after they like talk all about that, what's up?
very specifically though, he does ask her about all of these things. She never, all of the like, doesn't get it treated and things, but she's like, what he did wasn't discipline, it was brutality.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah. He says, no, she says he was just disciplining me. And he says, that was not discipline, that was brutality.
She says, it didn't even stop my eavesdropping. I just learned to be more clever about it. And this is when he has a realization. And he realizes to himself, she was so endearing, so indomitable, that Gabriel was wrenched with a feeling he'd never known before, as if all the extremes of joy and despair had been compressed into some new emotion that threatened to crack the walls of his heart. Pandora would never bend to anyone. Pandora would never bend to anyone else's will. She would never surrender. She would only break. And I was like, boy, oh, God. And then I could have slapped him in the face because he continued, though. And because he thinks to himself, he'd seen what the world did to spirited and ambitious women. She had to let him protect her. She had to take him as a husband, and he didn't know how to convince her. The usual rules didn't apply to someone who lived by her own logic. And I was like, Gabriel, I need you to take a fucking seat, buddy. You were so close to being perfect about this. And then you were like, I have to put her in my cage. My cage is the safe cage.
Yeah.
Gabriel.
I love
no
him.
cages. The issue is that there shouldn't be a cage at all. That's what she's trying to get through your thick Victorian England times man head, okay?
Yep. It's true. Well, and what you read leads to another of the most romantic turns of phrases I've ever read later on. So get ready for that, listener. So anyway, so look, then they flirt until he's like, let me show you something. Let me do something for you. And he does a real good finger bang on her. Does he also go down on her? Doesn't he go down on her?
Well,
yeah.
He very specifically.
Please.
She won't open her legs because she's very nervous about this whole thing. And he's like dipping his hand just in the crease of her upper thighs. And so like he can just get at that clit. And she's like, oh God, this feels really good. And then he's like, you're going to make me do something truly debaucherous. And she's like, what are you talking about? And then he licks down her and kisses down her body and like buries himself and like licks through that crease to get at her. And then she just opens.
And then, no, he says, open for me. And she just moves a minute amount. No. She moves a tiny bit and then he goes, 1 inch? Really? And then she opens all the way.
You're right. Okay, you're right. And then he does a oral and finger bang on her and blows her mind.
Obviously.
And then
first orgasm at 24.
Boy, she
20, 20?
21. She's 21. He's 28.
There we go.
And she is flabbergasted.
Mm-hmm.
And then he curls her up in his arms. And she's like, well, what about you? And he's like, well, take care of me later. And
oh my
this
God.
is just us.
Listener,
this is for you.
I'm so sorry. Before any of that even happens, he's like, do you not? She's like, yeah, I know. You want to marry me because of honor and like it's the right thing to do. And he's like, do you not understand how hot I am for you all the time? And she's like, what are you trying? No. And he's like, you can't be that naive. And then he thinks to himself, she is that naive. I know it feels weird, but that's where we're going to end our recap this week. We'll be back next week with 2 more episodes covering the rest of this sexy rendezvous and the journey to their HEA. Heaving Bosoms is produced by us, Melody Carlisle and Sabrina Bradley. Editing is done by me, Melody Carlisle. Our theme music is by the incredible singer-songwriter Brittany Fonts, and our art is by the ultra-talented author Kate Pryor. If you like our show, remember to follow us on your favorite podcast app, rate us 5 stars, and leave a review. That one small action is a huge way to help the show. If you want to get in touch with us for advertising inquiries or anything else, you can email us at heavingbosomspodcast@gmail.com. If you want more of us, visit patreon.com/heavingbosomspodcast. You can also find us on Instagram at Heaving Bosoms, on TikTok at Heaving_Bosoms, and in our Facebook group, the Heaving Bosoms Geriatric Friendship Cult. See you next week.